Hey there, can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We'll try running the internet off my phone.
Oh gosh. Oh
Yeah.
no.
Okay. So you can hear me, Melissa?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. So all I did was I took the 25 things from the spreadsheet minus the thing about updating the ordinance for gardening and the keeping of chickens, and took the solar farm off, which I don't know if I'm gonna add that on, so it's sort of like, I don't know if we want those in there. So I just dumped them all in there just to give us an idea of what we were thinking about things, and I sort of kind of rearranged them and put them into buckets, like in there, just to kind of organize our thoughts in terms of what we want to do or where they might want to go. So that was just there, just kind of reference. Jenny here did chapters 1 and 2, and she kind of come up with some stuff here, and this is what she sent me, so I just kind of threw it in the packet. And do you want to talk about like
these words? Run through it. Let's see here, but yeah, so I kind of did the same at the committee's priorities were, and looked through what the past plan had as goals and objectives, and then also looked at the Middleton plan. And then also just tried to think on my own, like this is a 10-year plan, right? So what sort of things are we facing, what's coming up, and what are some of the big areas that we need to cover? So the whole first chapter of the last plan was basically just reviewing where they expected cross plains to go over the 10 years as far as demographics and population and predicting growth. So I don't know if that's already been developed for this next 10 years or not, but I can only really see growth in the picture, so assuming we're going to continue to expand. And then it talked about how the public participates in the process to create the village plan, including the public survey, public visioning workshops, and then focus groups. And then I just put in what they had for their overall vision, kind of like a vision statement of what they thought, and was looking forward to 2035 and beyond, making sure that the village is safe, clean, attractive, prosperous, making sure there's available range of housing choices. We have these rich natural resources, including the Black River Creek. We want to continue to feature those. And then residents and visitors travel freely by car, bike, and foot, commuter transit to Madison. And then just tying us with Madison. So that's kind of currently what they had. And then my recommendations, or we may consider recommending, and part of this is what we already had talked about at the last meeting, was ensuring that the community surveys and workshops and everything that goes into this plan also includes sustainability goals, and how the public feels about that. So, and this could also include very specifically asking about energy efficiency, conservation, clean air and water, renewable energy, reducing transportation emissions, and climate resiliency. So I think that when we went through the survey that they were going to send out at the last meeting, that it included most of those things, and then we had set a goal question up there as well, as far as how much we would want to reduce emissions, I guess, or reduce carbon. And then I also think that we should recommend that there's a big inclusion of flood mitigation principles into this planning process, because that was something big that happened during the past 10 years. And then also, if they're going to make another vision statement, making sure that sustainability is more featured within that. So adding a general statement in there about environmental sustainability, climate resiliency, and natural resource preservation as priorities for our community, assuming that the public survey showed that this is what the general population wants as well. So that's basically chapter 1. There's not really a ton in there. Does anybody else have any comments about that?
Jenny, so for chapter one, your recommendation is around this, really around the survey and then being explicit about including sustainability in kind of any of the statements, the vision statements specifically, but those are, and then including flood mitigation. So that's where you would suggest that the comprehensive plan in the next iteration gets updated. Is that right? Are there any other recommendations?
Yeah, because I'm assuming they're gonna have another section in the next plan that'll talk about the planning process and how the plan was created. And
Okay.
so I just would want to make sure that sustainability is well featured in there.
Yeah, okay, thanks. That makes sense.
Okay, then did you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Chapter two?
Yeah.
Now, and I'd also placed in the packet the red line versions of what the plan commission has done on chapter.
Okay, I didn't get a chance to review the packet.
Okay, yeah,
Came through, but
that was like, so later on, so that's like that's what the stuff down further is, like kind of like what they went through, kind of like some of the changes that they had been working on.
okay.
So, but
With that, I had lost my internet, so I can see that.
Well, you can just go through what you want. Because it's kind of like all these changes are happening like at the same time. It's very kind of cat and tail like thing happening.
Yeah, right. So yeah, so it looks like they were basically taking everything out.
Well, they were kind of talking about, the old plan really talks about like preserving agricultural land, and it seemed like they were kind of like, is this really something the village should be doing? Because
Right.
when we like develop, when we develop this, was never really still the mantra like on this in this
Right.
agriculture section.
I think what I understood from the agriculture section was that one of the main goals was just protecting the land for cross plains to not necessarily kind of like protecting the borders, right?
Some of the protecting the farmland is also has to do with the sewer plant and how much is actually going into the creek versus what farmers are putting in and what we're putting in to keep the levels at the Black Earth Creek where it should be.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that was part of what my understanding was too, and then also just making sure like there's no like town development close to cross plain borders, which part of it I think makes sense because then that's more of like low density housing. And again, all that can impede on our natural resources here. So yeah, some of that I think could be valuable, but at the same time, like what you were talking about with agriculture and agriculture itself can be a threat to environment within the village. So I do feel like for the agriculture section, what I was looking at was, yeah, maybe making sure that we retain goals to that relate to make compact growth strategies, preserving the farmland just like for that reason. And then I think we need to maybe mention something about minimizing runoff, pesticides, fertilizers onto the waterways as outlined in water quality corridors. Ensure there's vegetative zones between farmland and waterways. And then just a few other things I was thinking about that relate to agriculture would be partnering with local farms, designating a site within the village that could be used for CSA shared drop off that was previously mentioned. That looks like they striked it out, was encouraging CSA use or community supported agriculture. Continuing to provide a space for farmers market. And then I don't know currently the status of the community garden. At one point there was a community garden, and I think one of the planned priorities at one point that we had was making sure there was space for community garden. So that kind of relates to agriculture as well. Any thoughts about that part? So I'm not sure. Like I said,
Michael's community, we were just talking about that community garden. It's overrun with wood chucks apparently.
It's behind Midtown Construction. Do you know where Midtown Construction is? So if you're walking toward that boardwalk and if you go right, you go on the boardwalk, you go when you cross railroad tracks from the fire department. If you stay on the left, you keep walking straight, it's right there. There's a strip of land that the village owns behind those houses backyards they're on Main Street, but their backyard, and then there's a strip of land, and then there's the creek.
Okay.
So it's down there.
And Michael has been coordinating the folks who,
Yes.
at one point in time, they paid, what,
It's
10
still
bucks for
$10.
a
It's still
plot?
$10. Yeah.
very reasonable, but you haven't gotten a lot of interest or something for
Yeah.
people besides yourself.
It was, when it started the first year I did, this is my 5th year, we had 2 people doing it, my dad, myself, and this other woman, so we had half the garden. It didn't flood, there weren't any animals, I was able to, we had great crops, I was able to grow a bunch of pumpkins, everything. So we got more people, plots started getting smaller, then like 2 years ago, that was sort of like when the animals started to invade a little bit, and it was wetter, a little bit wetter. Last year, the animals came back and it was super wet in June, like it was, the creek had or the garden had standing water on it for a while, because it's just so close to the creek, it doesn't drain. So it's just like, the roots of the tomato plants were basically rotted, like when I pulled them out, they just came right out of the ground. So, and we're kind of experiencing a lot of animal issues again this year.
Do you know if it's planned to continue? Like, who makes that decision? Is that Parks?
I think it's basically if I send Mike an email and say I want to run the community gardening, and he says, okay. If not, it doesn't happen. I mean, I don't know. That's the only reason why it's happening, because that first year, my dad wanted to know if they still had a community garden, so he wanted to try to real quick grow some tomatoes. I emailed Mike. Mike said, let me get in touch with the Life Foundation, Bud Bush, who ran it. He emailed him. Mike got the 2 of us together. I met Bud down there. He handed me the folder and said, okay, now you're in charge. And that's basically what happened.
I mean, to Jenny's point, though, I think it's a nice community resource, but do people know about it, and do we need a new spot?
Well, for it to be like, because I went down and looked at the one that is in Mazo behind the PI building there, the one that's down in Mazo. I mean, it's basically on PI land. PI owns it, but they don't have any, it's just grass that they say you guys can use it. And it's a big area, but they got some grants, and I think the Sauk Hospital gave them some money. They have like a 5-foot chain link fence. They have chicken wire that starts 2 feet up and it's buried 2 feet into the ground. I mean, it's like, they're keeping everything out that they can, like it's like a real thing. Whereas like down there isn't any fencing, and then my dad and I put up some plastic fencing this year, and something's just eating through it, so it's kind of tough.
Yeah, well, maybe if that was something that was in this 10-year plan, then perhaps a future development that can be something.
Well, that'd be crazy, but I don't, I don't, or it just gets, relocated, but I mean, I think, I don't know. It's something that we need to think about, because I don't know where to put it, where there's that land. That was just the spot that I think Mike and the Light Foundation just basically said, this area is being used while we put it there, like those in the parks land. So that's the status of that. So we had increasing enrollment, and now it's decreasing. Roller coaster.
Okay. Any other comments on like the agriculture part of this? Agricultural resources? No, okay. All right, then I'll move on.
These are great.
I'll move on to the section they had titled Natural Resources, and the current goal was to preserve the natural features and amenities and conserve our natural resources for the benefit of present and future generations. There was a lot in there. I think most of it probably could still apply. A lot of it's just about protecting Black Earth Creek, protecting our wetlands, floodplains, all that. And then it talked about working with the Ice Age Trail to establish the trail segment, which I think that work has all been completed at this point. And then it talked about clean air quality by decreasing reliance on automobiles. So I guess the part that I was looking at was that perhaps we could retain some goals. I don't know, in that packet, or you said, did they go through the natural resources section already too?
Yeah, they've done the entire comprehensive plan.
Oh, they did.
They've gone through like the whole thing, like on a one, it was just kind of a first time pass of like which things can be removed or changed, or are they still applicable, or have things in the plan where it says do this, if it's been done, those kind of things that like take out, because if it's been done, then you don't need to still have it in the plan sort of idea. So it's just kind of, rather than paying a consultant like $1 bazillion to go through and do that, they're just kind of going through and sort of doing it themselves. But I don't think that there's, like, it hasn't been rewritten. I think there's just all these ideas in there, but there isn't like a white version of it yet. At least Carly didn't send me one. I was kind of asking her if these things existed.
Did you say you dropped in the corrected version or the red line version down below here?
I did. That's,
I was
yeah.
wondering if they struck out anything that Jenny's referencing right now.
Well,
There was one part that is interesting here to me, that they're talking about, because it's talking about the water quality corridor west of the village, and how they're opposing any housing developments in that corridor. And then there's comments about what do they feel now? Would they consider putting ball fields there? We don't want to develop there. It just seems very definitive.
yeah, that's where that's still sort of like some of those questions concerning the water quality corridor, where they weren't sure what they like what sort of development would you allow? Like, you don't want to, like, I don't think you can put houses there because a lot of that's, but you can maybe put a baseball field there. I don't know if floods or not. That's sort of the idea, like in terms of development in that area.
Okay.
I will say though, like, it isn't in here. This was the meeting where I was in attendance for a different thing and hung around and listened to this. And so further down, when they talk about water quality stream protection at the bottom of page 28, like, I mean, that's 28 of the plan, like, yeah. Like right there, like where it says water quality corridor for stream protection, and it goes on these first levels, 300 feet from the center line. Some of these 200 feet from those, how it says the village will be allowed, the buffer zones are. I'm letting you know a lot of these buffer zones don't exist. At the time this was written, I believe this was ordinance, and that is no, because it got removed. I don't know when it got removed, but I remember I was at this meeting because they were talking about it. And like things like 150 feet from the center line of other streams, including Brewery Creek and Swamps, like that doesn't exist. 120 feet from the center line of Brewery Creek, I know doesn't exist anymore. Because I'll go out and take, like, on a certain day of the year, like once a year, I'll go out and just like download all the ordinances from the village and just put it in like a directory in my computer. So I kind of have like this year like history of like what they look like. Sort of been doing it for multiple years now. And what happened was when they were doing creek crossing, I was going through, because all this is in chapter 83, which is the land division ordinance. And I found this in here, the 150 feet from the center line of Brewery Creek. And I'm like, some of those houses in Creek Crossing were like within 100, or the lot line was like within 150 feet of the center line. I was like, I remember Bill Chang was the administrator. I'm like, how did these plots get developed? They're within 150 feet of this thing. And Bill was like, he was kind of like, man, we have consultants. I thought they were going to like, that they would check this stuff or know this stuff. So then I got curious then, and I was like, okay, well, the consultants didn't know that. So I went back to a previous version of chapter 83, and that stuff wasn't in there. So what had been concluded is what I think happened, because Bill Chang had made numerous bunch of changes have been made to chapter 83. But rather than going through and just making small changes to certain things, Bill had changed it all. And then he said, okay, we're going to repeal and recreate chapter 83 in its entirety. But when he did that, he went back and got an older version of chapter 83 that had these creek protections in it, made his changes, and all that became ordinance again. He didn't get the one where that stuff had been removed. So it was like this weird confusion. And that's what I figured out. So at this plan commission meeting, I'm like, they were wondering about this. And I'm like, I don't think that's ordinance, and I just explained to all of them what happened, and the board has since removed that section on the water quality board.
That's a little bit concerning to me, because I mean, a big part of this, what I was thinking, what is missing in this whole thing is about the flood mitigation. And this was a big event.
I agree.
It could very well have,
I agree.
very sooner rather than later.
I completely agree with you, but I believe that when this comes out, a lot of this water quality order stuff is not going to be in this comprehensive plan.
Wow.
Yeah, from what, and that's why it wasn't redlined here, but I don't think that a lot of these.
So,
Right, no, we're dealing with water quality and these sort of things, these protections were put in place, but they have been, and I don't know when these were removed. It's before I was on the board. Because I think that a lot of this stuff was put in when Richard Anderson was the village president, and that would have been in the early 2000s.
So then I'm interested to find out, because I haven't been on this committee very long, and to be honest, I've not been involved in local government very much. What has happened since the flood? What changes have they done to
Reduce flood mitigation?
reduce the chance of flooding, loss of personal property, lives, etc. in the future?
The only thing is those 5 or 7 acres, or whatever it is, on the east side of the bridge going up P are slated to be changed or turned into a. Do you know more exactly what they're doing? Have you been in meetings about this?
Yeah, they're creating essentially small ponds to help slow the water, so it's not just a big gush of water on big events to go down through the creek.
And what about when Creek Crossing was put in, do you know? Well, they do have some retention ponds, but was that really considered? Was there any consulting about impacts downstream?
I don't know on.
Well, so yeah, with Creek Crossing, when the development goes in, it has to retain through infiltration 90% of the pre-development water. So if it's there, when the water falls, by the village used to have in its ordinance, and I thought we changed it, you had to do 100% infiltration of all the water there. But the state reduced that to 90% under Scott Walker, that you can't go 100%. So we're limited to 90. Yeah, we cannot be more restrictive than the state. So we're limited to 90%. And up at Creek Crossing, they were only responsible for the water falling on the land of their development and retaining 90% of it on site for infiltration. And that's why they have the 2 ponds that are there behind the sidewalk.
So with that proposed development of the 5 or 6 acres, we had a guest that presented to this committee, Bill something, was he from Parks?
No, the guy from the engineering who did it in his car, that was Brian Bergquist. He was from Town and Country. Who like sort of, yeah, he talked about, because that's what we were asking about, those acreage up there on the other side of P, and he said they were going to be putting in, you're saying, so they're going to be ponds or things to slow down the water.
It's going to be kind of a ripple effect just to slow down all the watershed from up the valley of P, so it's not just rushing down through town.
And his assessment that night when he presented to us was, this is a drop in the bucket. This is not going to stop an event like that.
Yeah, he said that
you need 70 or 80 acres
to
even make a difference.
Yeah, like if it rains again, what's going on up there is not going to do it. I mean, it might stop really hard 3-inch rain and retain some water, but it's not going to stop 10 inches in 12 hours or whatever. So to answer your question, the only thing that's been done for flood mitigation is that thing. There's been nothing.
Okay.
I mean, there's been nothing done to stop an event like 2018. Let's say that. There is going to be something done with that severity.
So I feel like perhaps with public participation in this planning process, that's probably going to be brought up a lot. It sounds like Middleton, in reading that was a huge concern of their residents there. So I feel like this is something that maybe we need to push more for to include in the plan. Is our recommendations from the sustainability committee. I mean, I pulled a few from what was in the Middleton plan. We had a bunch in there. We talked about developing a more systematic approach to implementing green infrastructure, stormwater practices, innovative ways to improve the watershed, and community resiliency in the face of ever increasing extreme weather events. We talked about amending the floodplain overlay zoning district to better protect properties in flood fringe areas, which we probably have a lot of.
That's worth noting. I think the village has become a little more diligent about enforcing that because structures that people were building along the creek and particularly Brewery Creek, sheds and, you know, different things like that homeowners have had to remove those. So that is one positive because those ended up getting swept down and were a big trash pile that ended up plugging up the bridge under the bridges. And the new bridge on Market Street by the old Siemens lumber, that is significantly better clearance. So hopefully to reduce what they refer to as the bathtub effect, where everything got plugged in there and backed up. So that is worth mentioning, those two items. I can't think of others.
Good to note. They also had in the Middleton plan revising the zoning ordinance and other relevant codes to promote the reduction of impervious surface areas in order to improve on-site water filtration. They did previously have an objective in there that was similar in the previous plan. The Middleton plan also talked about making critical improvements to stormwater management infrastructure and mitigation practices to increase floodplain protection and avoid widespread damage in the event of extreme rain events. So they very specifically put that in there. They talked about reducing runoff and preventing flooding by maximizing upstream water infiltration, evapotranspiration during increasingly frequent large storm events. So they are continually saying. Consider strategic land acquisition. They talked about that, and I guess that's similar to what we're already planning to do, to put in the water retainage project. And then implementing the most effective flood control alternatives to mitigate future flood hazards. So I think those are the main ones from the Middleton plan. But yeah, I think just in general, we need to be considering flood mitigation in all new development projects and things that we're doing and even going above and beyond. And then also working with CARP to reduce the threat of flooding, which was one of our plan priorities that we had. And also, we also had a plan priority to develop a set of standards and ordinances that ensure stormwater is managed to the greatest extent. So that's all related to flooding, and then just other things that I kind of thought about protecting our natural resources. They did have a list of invasive or protected species. Is that what they had in there? But I think one thing that is kind of getting out of control within our village is the invasive species, especially along the creeks. There's a lot of various plants that are not native here and kind of choking out all of the native plants. In addition, the creek itself is very susceptible to invasive species, especially if people aren't, fishers or whatnot, cleaning their roots. I know we do have some stations around town already. As far as vegetative invasive species, I think we could create objectives to address that, including prescribed burns, regular and targeted mowing, etc. And then also making sure that we don't have any restrictive policies in place for allowing property owners to create their prairie yards or natural yards. I'm not sure if we do. Also making sure one of our priorities was to provide guidance to residents on preventing pollution to our waterways by reducing lawn chemicals, keeping grass clippings out of the storm drains, and then also just making sure that we're partnering with the Black Earth Creek Water Association to address PFAS pollution, because that was something that came up within the past couple of years. There actually was a warning to residents not to consume more than one trout per month, I believe, because of the PFAS contamination, which is pretty concerning to me. Another thing we can consider, working with the Wolf Run Trail Association to plan for the extension of that trail from Mazomanie to Middleton. Not sure if this is the appropriate location for that or not in this section. It's something we can consider. And then I also did put in there just about making sure we maintain a sustainability committee, kind of protect our own ourselves in there too. And then the last thing I thought that I didn't include to go in the packet had to do with water quality, because I know that Marchstone project that's being planned includes a golf course, and we may want to consider making sure that there's, maybe stronger language about preventing runoff in cases like that too.
Uses of fertilizers and.
Right. Yeah. Those are kind of all the things that I had thought about. Anybody else had to add or think thought of, comments?
I really like your, what you found in Middleton, how they really hammered home the rain events.
Yeah.
And stormwater mitigation. It's been 5 years and I think people are already forgetting.
Right. Yeah, but I think climate resiliency is something that we're going to have to face, and they call that a 1,000 year event, but it probably may be. We don't know.
Jenny, not having read this chapter, I think it looks like you've done a phenomenal job. I love that you've mapped out the committee's priorities over what the policies are or the objectives for this chapter. As you run through it, I don't hear anything that I think that, you've missed. These are good.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice job. Really nice job.
Yeah, absolutely. I know when I was at this meeting, this was when they were talking, because this section deals with agriculture, natural and cultural resources. They had kind of said, when they made it down to the natural resources part, at that plan commission meeting, they said, hey, would this be a good spot for where we could put the sustainability plan in just right here, like kind of like our bullet point thing? Like that's what was like brought up at the meeting. And I was there. I'm like, well, I'm the chairperson for the committee. I'll bring it up. And that was our whole entire thing. Do we want to have it be spread around the whole entire comprehensive plan, or do we just want like a sustainability section here underneath the natural resources section? So you kind of like got like the natural resources, which is a lot of our plan, like, because I had chapter 3, which is land use, and it was basically saying, these are all of our zoning codes. And I'm like, I don't know how I fit sustainability in here. I mean, unless you're going to talk about it at the conservation areas, but because it was just all the zoning stuff, there wasn't a whole lot of changes. It was just repetition of what the zoning districts were.
Yeah. Well, so my thought is that because I did the transportation one, which is chapter 4, and there are a lot of, all of the transportation committee or sustainability committee goals are already listed in our comprehensive plan. So my thought is that we should not have a standalone section in the comprehensive plan, because so much of it is actually already woven in, maybe not in the land use part, Michael, but coming out in the 2 sections that Jenny did in the transportation section. I don't know yet, since we haven't covered the other chapters, whether we would see all 25 of ours mapped out, but it's definitely hitting many of them so far in what we've seen. So my recommendation is that we just hammer home, like, look, our plan's priorities are already inculcated in the comprehensive plan. We just need to make sure it's implemented, rather than have something be a little bit standalone, which might be a little easier to ignore.
I totally agree with that. I was just going to say that we have to separate, the people who might be working on a specific section may not even consider it at that point. I like how it would be integrated.
Yeah, I fully agree that too. It's too easy to, it's one big chunk for someone with a pen just to exit out. I want it like sort of integrated all through the plan. So,
Okay. Okay. Well, I was just saying like what was like talking about.
no,
So
I appreciate it.
and when she was doing this and I was going back, you guys can put the red line, and it was like, this is where they said they would go. Because I was always at the back of my head, like, where did they say the sustainability thing? Because I couldn't remember what chapter it was, but this was their suggestion. They were there, they're like, oh, sure, this could be sustainability could go here. That's like what their initial thought on it. Well, there wasn't anything written in the red line thing, but this was, I know this is what they were talking about. So, all right.
Just the very last thing I had to talk about was the last thing was their cultural resources, which really didn't feel like there was too much that we could put in there, but just, they did talk about like streetscapes and stuff, so if that's something that, is gonna be done in the next 10 years, then I think it should include vegetation, like trees and native plants when planting those things.
Jenny, I do have a recommendation potentially for this cultural resources piece and our comprehensive plan. And I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not, because I haven't shared it outside of my own brain, but I'm wondering about how we can help Cross Plains really play up our natural assets, our nature-based assets as part of the culture of Cross Plains, and whether there's a way to integrate that into our comprehensive plan. We have our world-class trout stream. We have the Ice Age Trail and these ridges and hiking trails. And so we have these tremendous nature-based assets that, to me, somehow could be part of the cultural aspect of the community. And I'm thinking that there might be some way to like weave this in as a narrative in the culture section of this comprehensive plan.
Yeah, I think so. I really like that idea. In like the text part of I think it was more within the natural resources. It did talk a little bit about just these assets and everything, but I really like having that as part of the culture. I think that makes total sense.
Cool.
I think the geography of the area too is very unique. It may not necessarily be natural resources, but if you talk about Cross Plains to anybody who's a triathlete or a biker, this is a destination for their training too, as well as the mountain bike trail gets a lot of use from outside people. They come and park here. So that's a real asset. Melissa, I know I see you up on the trail running when I'm running.
Yep. Yep.
So it's a destination for, for outdoor silent sport athletes.
Yep.
So that's a very good point. I like it.
Yeah,
cool.
The statement under there with our recommendations, I guess, about that.
Jenny, I think I didn't quite catch what you said. Can you say that?
I'll add a statement in that section I have with
Oh, amazing. Okay, great. Thank you.
I think that's it for me.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenny. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Hopefully, with the water issues, I'm really interested in what's going to come back in the survey. And because I know, even with like the Marchstone development that's going in, I know that to be honest with you, I think that they're just getting to their 96% infiltration level. And that's just like how they're developing it. There isn't anything over and above. And in Middleton, when they say we want to encourage developers to get to 100%, like I don't know how they're going to do that. That would be like a weird question. The only way that they could get to something like that is a lot of times you can use TID funding to kind of strong arm a developer into doing something you want them to. But that development isn't asking for any TID money. Like this would be like I know the communities have been like, used to be like, hey, we want you to put solar panels on your roof, or we're gonna give you X amount of money, and they're like, okay, then we have to do it, like, it's a way to like force that, but
What do you mean by the 96 to 100% infiltration? What do you mean by that?
that's what I believe marched on this first plat map that was at Plan Commission on Monday. The state minimum is 90, they're gonna be at 96%. What I think that there is what their amount was. It was above 90, it was like,
Okay,
I'm like,
so they feel like they're going above.
well, they're above the 90%, and I think they said something getting to 100% would be very difficult. But you can get to 100%, probably if they knock down a house and make something bigger.
Hey, did I lose you guys again? Can you hear me?
It's when I start talking.
Okay.
Oh,
No, it says it's unstable again.
oh,
We're about to
maybe
lose
it
you. Melissa, are you there still?
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so my question to Michael, I guess this development is no longer just a concept, it's moving ahead.
I wasn't at the plan commission meeting on Monday. I don't know if they approved it or if they put a bunch of changes in there or what. Do you know what happened?
Nothing was decided on Monday.
So they didn't vote?
They didn't vote on anything.
Did they talk about it a lot?
They talked about it for roughly 3 hours. So
Holy cow, are you serious? Okay, well, that's gonna be
Read
a,
those minutes.
yeah, well, watch the video. It's a 3 hour, really, they talked about it for 3 hours? Holy, that's
How
gonna be,
many houses are they proposing for this?
well, this,
the first section, phase one, is roughly 110, 115, and that, but overall is close to 400, I believe.
How big is, I didn't think there was that much room up there.
483 acres.
Okay, it's a full-size golf course, 18-hole golf course?
That's what they proposed, yeah.
and a par three. And a par three. I don't know if that's 9 or 18 par three holes. I don't know which one it is exactly. I think there's supposed to be a par three if they're also.
They have a lot in the plan, yeah. I
See,
overall, they said something about a driving range and a putting green area, and
yeah. Okay, yeah, okay. So I did not have a chance to attend the meeting. I was planning on watching the video, but I got to cancel out a 3 hour jump. I guess if I'm going to watch this video on there, I know there were quite a few comments made by staff about concerning it. Okay, good, thank you. I wasn't sure what had happened. Wow, they talked about it a lot. Okay. All right, so like I said, I did chapter 3, which was land use. And it was really just going through all the different zoning codes and like what's allowed there. You could put inside of there some of our things like, see, I don't know, and this is kind of why I went and made the sustainability plan items, because I was like, okay, if I'm thinking about land use, which of our goal things would be applicable for that? Because every single section just kind of was like, oh, this section's this is where people are going to live, and et cetera, et cetera. I was like, okay, well, review zoning and building codes, identify improvements to green and sustainable practices and gray water and things like that. So that's where I was like, okay, do we want to say, how do you do green infrastructure inside of development? I mean, there are ways to do that, but we don't have any sort of ordinances, I don't think, inside of our chapter 83 or land division thing. Like when a new development goes in, we don't say, aside from the water infiltration, that might be the only green code that we have in there. Like except for but this last development, they had things like they wanted the houses to have trees and certain amount of landscaping things. But those I don't believe are required by us. That was the developer's agreement that they were going to have someone who buys it, that they have to put in this number of trees and get this many points and have shrubs and things like that. But that would be, I don't know if inside of our chapter 83, like when you're talking like streetscaping inside of development, could we ask for the developer to be like, hey, we want of your yards, 3% of it to be prairie plants. See, rather than like just pine trees. See, those would be like ideas like that, where that stuff would go. Like when new developments are planned, but that would be going to the developer and saying, or having an ordinance, having it in our plan. So this was kind of like with this whole land use thing, it's like looking at just like, okay, these are just all our zoning, but how do you, what would you get inside the zoning that would be sustainability, or in your land division that would go on the plan that would be applicable towards sustainability aside from the water infiltration? And was this kind of like, well, what green infrastructure things you can do? And then we had things like with developments with over 10 units provide space for gardens for their residents. I mean, inside of this new development, like what we were talking about, like a new spot. I mean, some of those areas up there are going to be elevated because they're up on a hill. So it probably isn't going to flood like down there, you know, like down by the creek. I mean, not that they're going to, but like what if they would carve out like a whole acre that we could fence in and have a community garden up there that isn't going to flood? Like these sort of ideas.
Well, I mean, if there is a new development with multi-unit housing, that would be, you know,
For this,
requiring a developer to put in like a small area for a garden.
right, right. And I even know they probably, from what I read, and just with like Marchstone, like they weren't planning on putting a park in that development. They were just going to pay parkland fees in lieu of that. Is that correct? I believe that's what I read.
Yeah, that was part of the discussion.
Yeah, I imagine because I read that and I was like, you're going to put 400 houses up there and you're going to put a park in anywhere? Yeah, I was just kind of like saw that. So yeah, I
It
was
goes against what elsewhere has already occurred.
right, like where we have a bunch of smaller parks inside neighborhoods, this is going to be a very large one. There's going to be a park. So there was just things that I saw. But if you get land for a park, you know, how big is it going to be, et cetera, in the garden. This was more like when I started thinking about when I was just reading all these land uses, I'm like, well, if we get more generalized sustainability things there, that would be like, I don't know where it would go in this chapter, you know. That was it. And we would think about residential. I mean, maybe it would just be the residential areas, but you would, because I don't really know if we're going to really have a whole lot of light industrial going on in the village or other land uses like that. So that's sort of what I had. It was kind of very, the section didn't seem real conducive towards sustainability, but then when I started thinking about zoning, you want to change your zoning. Or things like, you know, research current construction waste recycling and determine how to improve recycling rates. They're going to be building 400 houses. How do we bump up recycling inside of those areas? Whereas, unless they already do that, they throw it all in a dumpster and it goes somewhere. They sort it out there. It's just all go on a landfill. But they don't. So, yeah, no. So that would be possible something for land use because that sort of was like the development construction thing that I was thinking those ideas could go on.
Kind of feels like it's sort of targeted for short term. I mean, it's important. I'm just wondering if there's a way to get some more conceptual ideas in there. So it's like at least consider whether the plant, you know, the prairie plantings, for instance, with new developments. Consider, you know, you kind of listed off a lot of the gray water,
Right.
trees, waste. I'm just afraid if they're not called out, people won't think about them. If we continue to call them out and have people not do them, that's one option. But
Or we can get it in the plan and try to
get in the plan. So it's sort of front and center. That's kind of the way I'm thinking of these, of the plan is let's make sure it's there for people to consider. I don't think you can force people to. It's not an ordinance.
No, but a lot of times if you put something in your plan where, because like other sections of the plan are like create ordinances to limit signage in the village, like that would go like in your comprehensive plan. And then like, because then if you create an ordinance to do that, it's like, does this jive with your comprehensive plan? And you say, yes. Whereas if your comprehensive plan, you say, remove all regulations related to signage, your sign ordinance, and you're not in conflict with your comprehensive. So when things go in here, it kind of leads that way. It's sort of the overarching idea.
I guess I would like it to be worded so we can grow into it as well. You know, it doesn't just come and go. Like, you know, there was a comment earlier about limiting use of automobiles. Like, well, not if they're electric. You
Well,
know,
right.
and who knows what technology is coming down the road, what AI is going to do for us. But I hear what you're saying. You're essentially saying our specifics aren't really kind of mapping to that
Yeah, like
verbiage.
I wasn't like, how does this go in? Because it's, like one of the things that like this section talked about was like create a community facilities zoning district. And like the village board just approved one. Like it was like create a new zoning area, which is like, like where the new village hall would be, that's like what that zoned as, it's called community facilities. And it's, so these are just kind of like all the zoning districts. Okay, how do I sustainability fit into that? So I don't know. I was kind of reading a whole lot, and nothing was coming out of the brain for where things should go.
How about within the minutes and plan? Did you see anything in there that stood out that?
See, in terms of like land use, no, there's really focused a lot on energy and a lot on water. And I was just kind of trying to get like the main things. And that's kind of where like we have these other chapters that are going to be coming up in future areas. I don't know, we still have to work through and see where we go, because like we have a lot of things that are focused in here on energy. And I'm like, well, what chapter would that stuff be? I don't know. Like it's kind of like we just kind of have to come up and do some weird mapping for these items. So I don't know. I'm sorry I don't have like more concrete like things to go in there. It just wasn't coming. It was just like not, aside from when you build something, how do you make it more sustainable?
Michael, I don't know that there's anything that I would add to. I think if you've come through it and you can't, you of all people, I feel like you do such a good job of getting in the weeds. If you can't come up with a firm recommendation, I would say there's probably not a lot for us to do in this section. But I do wonder if, like Jenny did at the beginning of, I forget what the chapter 1 was, but Jenny, you had some suggestions about including it in the vision statement. And I wonder if there isn't an opportunity to just, even in the header of that section on the zoning section or land use section, if there isn't a way to just kind of like signal that when possible, we want to prioritize sustainability in that, kind of using in that language, in that section of the chapter.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then also I'm just looking at like what one of the old land use goals was, and it says ensure that the character and location of all types of land uses within the village contribute to the general health, safety, and welfare of Cross Plains residents and property owners. I mean, you could just throw in sustainability in there too, just to make sure it's,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Maybe I'll need to go through this and reread it. Like, where can I throw sustainability again? I think I just was reading it and absorbing it and not. And I was trying to put it in, but I like what you're saying.
yeah, just tweaking what they have. I don't what they already tweaked it there.
In this section, they didn't really tweak anything because nothing really changed. I mean, it's basically like the single family home residential is just still our zoning. Like it was like, we don't need it. They were like, there's nothing being changed there. I mean, we still have light industrial. I mean, there is some stormwater stuff. They're used for stormwater retention and surface water. So we're coming back to water again. It was, I don't know, we would take another stab at it, but it was just kind of like.
Well, like Melissa said, if it's not there, don't force it. Too, but I like your idea, Melissa, of maybe just getting that up front so it's more of a vision. And you say it once and it's at least there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's something about like smart growth, like putting that in the vision of, compact growth whenever possible, but, limiting growth or sprawl or something. But yeah, in listening to you and not having not read the chapter myself, I think you might have ferreted out what could be ferreted out for this particular chapter.
Yeah.
Not to be a party pooper, but I was hoping to get out of here at 7:30. If there's anything
Hmm.
want to discuss, but
Um, I'm happy to do the transportation sector either tonight or we could hold it for the next meeting. Or the section. I feel like if we're done on land use, I could be pretty quick on transportation and then we could wrap up 4 chapters tonight. If
Yeah,
y'all are
let's,
willing.
let's do that.
Let's do
Yeah.
that. And I'm in agreement too. I think 7:30's hour and a half's plenty to chew on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll be brief. So, I had the chance to look through the comprehensive plan for transportation, and you know what? The upshot is these are all still the right things. We just need to do them. I don't know, Michael, at one point you mentioned how there was something in the comprehensive plan that you didn't know about, and you asked Bill, and Bill's like, I don't know, didn't we, aren't people checking? I am wondering how many of these policies that are in the comprehensive plan anybody's looking at. So all of all our 2 goals and from the sustainability committee that relate to transportation are thoroughly, in my opinion, integrated into the comprehensive plan. So our 2 goals were around transit, like public transit, and kind of active transportation. Can we enable people to get to where they need to go without having to drive everywhere and make it safe? Those already seem integrated in this version of the comprehensive plan. So they are, they talk about linking our transportation system in Cross Plains with the regional transportation system to enable public transportation between Cross Plains and Madison. This was 2017. We haven't made any progress. So this is something that I want it to stay in. I'd suggest it stays in. I'd say everything that's already in this comprehensive plan should stay. And I actually don't have anything that I'd recommend needs to be added. If we could just implement it, that'd be a win. I did note that the which committee was this, Plan Commission or maybe Kevin Thusius, who's doing the red here? Who's
This was Plan Commission. I think this was Seth Johnson, because he works in,
okay.
he's like a traffic engineer.
Yeah, so if you scroll down to see the policies section, you'll see that there's almost nothing changed from there's almost no recommendations for changing except some maybe minor linguistic things. It should be page 74. You got a couple more to go. And but it was thoroughly well researched. It points to something like I don't know, 8 or 10 different policy or plans that are part of the county or the state that we could link into. There's so much research that's already been done. We just need to make it happen. So if you scroll down just one more, so you'll start to see the policies. There's 13 of them. And whoever went through for Plan Commission, we kind of had the same response of no, this is all still, we still just need to do it. Keep this stuff. The only other thing is they pulled in, if you scroll down to the bottom, the next page, yep, they've added number 14 and 15 they were part of this comprehensive plan, but they were just they weren't called out specifically. They were in a slightly different section. So what they've done is now pulled and said that 14 specifically, if you're doing street reconstruction, you should figure out how to make it more bikeable, walkable, safely. And then the second one that they added comes from a different part of what's already in this comprehensive plan, which is, try to figure out if we can expand trails so that people can get places safely. So I think it's already pretty great. We just need to, so I'd say thumbs up from me on this chapter already. And then I appreciate that Plan Commission has already done the work of drawing out a few more explicit things that were already in the plan and putting them in the kind of policy proposal section. Also, this is 2017, and in 2017, they specifically said that Cross Plains supports regional efforts to develop transit systems and, get this, intends to identify a site for a potential future rail station within the village. Like that blew my mind because I haven't heard any conversation around that. It would be amazing to have commuter rail, but I wanted to stay in the comprehensive plan, and I was shocked to see that. So what do folks have questions about that, about the chapter or recommendations?
I think it's great, Melissa, that you went through and it's like we've still got, I mean, it's not great we didn't do anything. But it's great that it's, you know, sort of teed up and is ready for a fresh life. So thank you for the review.
Yeah.
Okay, but did you notice that the commuter rail was redlined on page 76?
Yeah, but it's not. So if you, what they did was simplify it to just rail. They
Rail.
just said bus. So they got rid of commuter rail and light rail and just said rail, which I found to be fine. Like it was just kind of simplifying. But maybe you're interpreting that differently than I am, because maybe your interpretation is like that means no commuter rail. But I interpret it as just kind of simplifying to say rail in general, because we need for specifically transit. I was interpreting that as moving people.
Mhm.
But maybe this is a question for Plan Commission, because I interpreted that to mean they're just simplifying it, not getting rid of the people aspect of using rail.
Maybe it was just a simplification. I don't know.
Because they didn't get rid of the, there's somewhere else in the recommendations where they didn't eliminate the references to rail. I'll have to go back and see if I look through those policies and see if there's anything else, but it seemed,
You said there was a spot about a station?
yeah. So,
Policies part?
yeah, so in the other transportation options, which are on the bottom of page 77, it's underneath the policies. It's in the next like recommendations section.
On page 76, it's number 3, I think.
Yeah, and page 77, it's the page 77 of the document, which might be different than yeah, okay, yep. It's the bottom. Nope, keep going. Oh, it's interesting. So we have different page numbers, but this is the section. So scroll down for transportation programs and scroll down a little bit longer. Other transportation options. So this where it's highlighted, and I'm not sure who highlighted it, but I think somebody else keyed in on like, hey, we said we'd do this. Regional transit service. This is where it says this second to the bottom bullet point. Cross Plains supports regional efforts to develop transit systems and intends to identify a site for a potential future rail station within the village. As mass transit opportunities begin to come to fruition, the village intends to review and update its codes and ordinances to ensure that they allow mixed-use developments to occur around future facility sites. Now, again, I could be interpreting that more broadly than they intended it to. I interpret that as commuter.
I mean, it seems pretty clear to me too.
It's, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that sounds great. When I kind of read the transportation section, I kind of looked at like what our goals were, and I was the same way, sort of felt the same thing. So it's like, I think all these are kind of right in here. Like they kind of just had pretty much a lot of those ideas.
Yeah.
One thing that you might want to consider adding is that I had put in my section about partnering with the Wolf Run Trail, which I know there is a plan for it to eventually go from Mazomanie to Middleton. And that would be a bike trail.
That is in here, Jenny. That is in here.
Awesome.
It is, and I don't remember if it's in the objectives or if it's in the policies, but it was called out specifically a bike path they didn't say Wolf Run, but what they did say was connecting Middleton to Mazo. Oh, the Good Neighbor Trail that will connect Cross Plains to surrounding communities like Middleton and Mazomanie, which I was interpreting as connecting to the Wolf Run.
Perfect.
Isn't there an extension of that they're thinking about doing to Sauk?
I think so.
Up that railway It's the little spur.
Stalka started working on the bridge over the
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, and that would be a bike pedestrian thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I know we want to wrap up. So Jenny, as I look through the policies and the objectives, I don't think I don't see it specifically called out. Like it's in a different section before it's in one of the, it's mentioned that connector trail is mentioned in the bicycle transportation plan for the Madison metropolitan area and Dane County. And the comprehensive plan is referencing all of these other plans from the county and the state. So they reference it, but I actually don't see it pulled in to the objectives or policies for our comprehensive plan. And so I'm gonna, that would probably be the thing that I would call out specifically that we, yeah, that maybe is included as a proposed policy or an objective is that connector trail. Everything else seems like that's in here.
Sounds good.
All right, that's all I got. Michael, do you need a motion to adjourn?
I do. All I want to say is, please keep in mind how we want to spend our $1,000 on the focus on energy grant. That's still out there. We just in case you get an idea.
All right.
So yeah, if we want to adjourn, we need a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Yeah, a second then.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. You guys have the motion, the meeting. Oh, wait, we already adjourned. But if you have any future agenda items, you can say them.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks everyone. Good work. Bye.
Bye.